Hi everybody, it's Claire back with another art journal video. In this one I'm playing in the small craft journal, which won't be any surprise to any of you really, I guess. But I'm using a transparency from Dina as my focal point. So here I'm just mapping out roughly where the edge of the transparency is, and I'm going to try not to put any paint in there just so that that transparency can really be the focal point without any colour behind it. I'm going to be adding the colour on the right hand side of the page. So I'm starting off with some collage tissue paper, and then I used some Tangelo. So this is about picking colours that I wouldn't normally choose. I don't often go for oranges and deep reds and pinks together, although I do use a lot of pink and purple and blue in my journaling normally, as well as rainbow colours obviously. So this day I was kind of challenging myself to use colours that I wouldn't normally pick. So apologies that the first bit of the video was missing, but sometimes I film on two cameras and my other camera got in the way of the screen and it was very distracting, so I just got rid of that first bit. So here I'm using some fuchsia, and I'm using the lattice stencil and just doing a bit of lifting of the paint through the stencil using a baby wipe. So you can see I'm applying a bit of paint down, and then while it's still wet, popping the stencil down, using the baby wipe to just lift that colour through. Apologies again that the camera seems a bit wobbly, it must have been touching the desk. So I am just giving the stencil a wipe each time, just because of course it is picking up a little bit of paint from the page where I'm laying it on top. So I'm just lifting a bit of that off each time. One thing I have found with this fuchsia paint from Dina is it is quite reactive. So if I was to put white paint over the top of that, sorry, not wet paint, white paint over the top of it, some of the colour will pop through into the white paint and kind of tint it a little bit. But you know, I kind of think it doesn't really matter, because quite often it is so much about those layers, and if they react with each other, well, then so be it, they do. That's okay. So just finishing that off, then I'm going in with this floor tile stencil from Dina as well. This is really shaky, this one, I'm so sorry. I hope it's not going to be too distracting for you all to watch. And this is magenta from Dina Wakley. Just through that stencil as well. You can see that right hand side there where I first went in, I'd had a bit too much paint on my blending tool and it had bled a little bit underneath the stencil. This stencil's called Bumps. It's also a Dina stencil, and here I'm just using Carnation. So I'm kind of using colours in the same family. I guess you can see, even though I started off with colours I wouldn't normally use, I've reverted to type, haven't I, and ended up with the pinks. But yeah, using those colours that are in the same colour family. So if you're kind of going in with warm colours, then they are going to work and play really nicely together. So even though I started off with orange and I've gone through to pink, they still work. So on the transparency, I'm just putting some little details on there. So I'm adding some cheeks. And I'm going to put in the whites of the eyes as well, because that just helps draw attention to those. And then just to stick that in place, I'm just using the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. Quite often when I use the stapler, I do then flip the page over to the other side and just make sure that those staples are laying completely flat. Obviously, you will also know that the Dina Wakley Ultra Thick Gel Medium works really well for adhering transparencies in. Starts off cloudy, but when you burnish it and sort of give it a good rub down, it doesn't stay like that. So then I decided I wanted to give this cool face some hair. So I'm using this Dina round brush and some white paint this time. So this is a bit of a contrast to the background. And here I'm just going to start adding in some lines this almost one must have just gone too thick. So you can see, just so easy to lift away. If you work while your paint is wet, you can just get rid of those things that you do and you don't like. It's so easy to edit what you're doing while you're working. So I'm just adding in some lines that kind of reflect the movement of hair going across the page. And then I was just adding a second layer over the top. And then connecting the hair to the top of the head as well. Okay, so once that was dry, I'm then using my Posca pen, and I'm holding it in quite a loose way so that I can do some kind of loose scribbly lines reflecting the ones on the face. And I'm going to try and connect the hair to the face. But you can see I'm really not gripping that pen hard. I'm just holding it really lightly so that I can kind of be a bit more sketchy with the lines that I'm drawing. So this is Orchid, it's gloss spray. It was running out and the pump wouldn't work, so I decided I would just use my fan brush and go in with some splatters. Orchid is one of my favourite pinky purple colours from Dina, and it goes really nicely with so many of the other colours too. So here I thought I would do my writing in white, and I made a start. And then decided I didn't like it, so rubbed it out with my finger. It would have worked to lift it off with the baby wipe as well. I don't think I was even very happy with the quote that I'd found, so then found a better quote, switched to black, which worked much better as a contrast with the rest of the page. And I am using the lines of the hair as my guide for writing my words. So you can see I'm making my letters touch the top and bottom pretty much of those lines. I haven't gone in and drawn any more lines. I'm just using those as a rough guide where to put my journaling. So once that bit was done, I'm then using my little dotty stamp, and I'm just going in and adding some more mark making onto the page, just around the edges. This is something that I really like to do, to kind of finish off my pages. As you know, if you've followed me for a long time, as I know a lot of you have, I used to spend ages doing dots. Now I've got this little stamp, it's so quick. And then just as a bit of a contrast, I'm just going in and adding some areas of white dots as well, because you can't have too many dots. And then I'm using my Signo Uniball in white, and I am just carefully outlining the lines where the text goes, just to help draw a bit more focus to where those are, because I felt that they were getting a little bit all kind of mushed together. And this is only a thin white pen, so it isn't going to draw the attention too much, but just helps to separate those lines of text a little bit from each other. You can see that's already kind of working a bit better, and works with what's already there. So this was a really fun page to create, starting off with colours that I wouldn't normally choose, just pushing myself a little bit to do something a bit different, and of course ending up using some of my favourite colours too. So thanks for watching. I hope you found some inspiration from this video, and I hope to see you again soon.